I will now call the meeting to order and review the following ground rules for the Committee of Adjustment on December 16th, 2021 at 6 p.m. over Zoom. Good evening, members of the committee, applicants, agents, staff, and members of the public. I will now call the Committee of Adjustment for December 16th, 2021 to order. As this meeting is being held electronically due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I will go over some ground rules of procedure for the benefit of members and the viewing public. This meeting is being recorded and streamed live via the County of Brant YouTube account. To all of those attending the meeting, please ensure your camera is off and your microphone is on mute throughout the meeting when you are not speaking. When it is appropriate to speak, please remember to unmute your microphone and turn on your camera, if operational, before speaking. I would ask that, if possible, Committee of Adjustment members use their cameras throughout the meeting so that applicants, agents, and members of the public know who the members are. Staff will be requested to join the meeting during presentations and will be available to answer questions. Movers and seconders of each motion will be identified by the committee members and a recorded vote captured by a yes or no by each committee member. Applicants, agents, owners, and delegations are participating via Zoom or telephone accordingly. All persons wishing to speak to the items on the agenda were required to register prior to the meeting. Any delegations received in written format have been provided to the members of the committee and will form part of the meeting record. Those presenting as delegations will have 10 minutes to speak to the application at hand, not past applications or associated applications. Staff will have a timer for 10 minutes and will give the delegation a 2-minute warning. If the delegation presentations are not focused on the application at hand, the chair will ask the delegations to focus their presentations. In the event a connection or service interruption occurs that affects quorum of Committee of Adjustment, we may recess the meeting for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting is adjourned. I will now introduce Kayla Delay to provide the following comments.
Good evening, Committee of Adjustment and members of the public. I'll just need 1 minute. I'm just going to get our script and I'll be right back. Sorry about that. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's Committee of Adjustment meeting. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, rather than a traditional meeting in the council chambers, this virtual meeting will act as a statutory meeting for the Committee of Adjustment planning applications. The purpose of this Committee of Adjustment meeting is to give consideration to minor variance and consent applications. Public notices were mailed and signs were posted by staff as required by the Planning Act. A copy of the meeting agenda, including the staff report, related materials, and comments received have been posted on the County of Brant website. This evening, the committee will hear from planning staff who will share an overview of the planning application and provide their recommendation. The committee will then hear from the agent and/or the applicants and any members of the public who have registered to speak this evening. Following each presentation, the committee will have an opportunity to ask questions for clarification. Once the presentation, public hearing, and question period are complete for each item, if the committee deems it appropriate, they will make a decision. The names of those individuals who speak on any item tonight will appear within the meeting minutes. Anyone wishing further notice of any hearing, including a copy of committee's decision, please contact the Secretary Treasurer for the Committee of Adjustment. Minor variance decisions are final if there are no appeals within 20 days after the committee decision, and consent decisions are final if there are no appeals within 20 days after the notice of decision has been issued. Representing planning staff this evening include myself. We have Amanda Wazinski, Shannon LaBelle, Vanda Misniak, and Alyssa Seitz. And I'll turn it over back to our chair, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Kayla. I'll now ask the committee to please indicate if they are present when I call their names by stating present. Mary Jane Brown, present. Harry Emmett.
Present.
Bob Hamilton.
Here. Present.
Daniel Zuloff.
Present.
Rebecca Smith.
Present.
Steve Schmidt.
Present.
John Vamus. John
Chair,
Vamus not.
Member Vamus
Yes?
just exited the room. He's back now.
Okay. John Vamus.
Present. Sorry, they cut me out. Present.
That's okay, thank you. We will now move to item 2, approval of the agenda. Do any members have any items to be added to the agenda? I believe there are none. I will now turn it over to Member Emmett for the motion.
Moved by myself, seconded by Member Smith, that the agenda for the County of Brant Committee of Adjustment meeting of December 16th, 2021 be approved.
Thank you. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Zuloff.
Yes.
Vamus.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Brown, yes. The motion has carried. The agenda has been approved by the committee. We will now move to item 3, declaration of pecuniary interest. And are there any members who would like to declare a conflict of interest for the items on the agenda this evening? There are members who have indicated it, and I will start with Member Vamus. Please indicate which application number you have the conflict with.
Yes. Item 6-2, it's A23-21-SL Cortez. It's the minor variance, Cleaver Road and Bishop's Gate.
Thank you. For myself, Member Brown, item 6.8, B67-21-AW and A38-21-AW, Cruikshank. I will now pass it to Member Zuloff.
Yes, I have a conflict with the same item. Item 6.8, B67-21-AW and A38-21-AW.
And I will now ask Member Emmett to indicate their conflict.
Yes, I have a same one, 6.8, B67-21-AW and A31-21-AW, the Cruikshank one.
Thank you. When those items on the agenda come before the committee, I will ask those members to recuse themselves. We will now move to item 4, adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. Do committee members have any errors or omissions to note? It appears there are none. I will now turn it over to Member Zuloff for the motion.
Moved by myself and seconded by member Hamilton that the minutes from the County of Brant Committee of Adjustment meeting of November 18th, 2021 be approved.
Thank you, Member Zuloff. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Amos,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Brown, yes. The motion has carried. The minutes from the November meeting of the Committee of Adjustment has been adopted. I will now introduce item 6.1, application A3721 SL, and we'll turn the meeting over to staff for the presentation of the report and recommendation on this application. Hello, is Shannon present for the application?
Through the chair, it looks like Shannon's just trying to share her screen. And you are
Okay.
muted, Shannon.
Thank you. We'll wait a minute.
Her computer's just frozen. She's, it might be a minute. And it looks like Shannon is our planner for the next few applications. If we would like to wait, Shannon, or would you like us to maybe skip down to the start of the other applications? She'll just be one more moment if we don't mind.
We will wait a few minutes, I guess, Alyssa, because Shannon is for the next 4 applications.
Sorry about that. Was having some technical difficulties. Thanks for everyone's patience. Good evening, Committee of Adjustment and members of the public. This is regarding application A3721 SL for 1264 Colborne Street West. And this is a minor variance for lands identified at 1264 Colborne Street West within the former township of Brantford. The applicant is seeking relief from Section 9, Table 9.2.1 regarding minimum lot area for the retained lot in order to recognize a deficiency that was created as a result of approved severance application B2121 SL. The minor variance is being requested as a revision to approved minor variance application A2021 SL, as the retained area did not match the area requested for the original minor variance. The applicant is seeking a minimum lot area of 3,200.4 square meters for the retained lot, whereas a minimum lot area of 4,000 square meters is required. They're requesting relief of 799.6 square meters. To the north of the subject property, there is open green space, and the lands are zoned commercial with a commercial building located to the northeast. A single detached dwelling is located northwest of the subject property. To the west, there is low density residential, and to the south and east of the subject property, there are agricultural lands. The subject property has a frontage of approximately 63.6 meters along Colborne Street West and an area of approximately 3,200.4 square meters. The subject lands are designated rural residential within the County of Brant official plan, and the residential use is permitted within the rural residential designation. The subject lands are zoned rural residential, RR. The proposal is in keeping with the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. No public comments were received at the time of writing this report. Staff is of the opinion that the minor variance to request to permit a minimum lot area for the retained lot of 3,204 square meters, 0.4 square meters has merit, is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the development of the subject lands. The request is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. I am recommending approval of the minor variance application subject to the attached conditions. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Shannon, for the presentation. Does the committee have any questions or comments to staff on this application? I believe there aren't any. Is the agent or applicant present to make a presentation or add any details of the staff report?
Let me see. Dave Rowe. There I am.
Yes, Mr. Rowe?
Yeah, I'm just here to answer if there's any questions for the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions or comments to the agent? I believe there are none. And are there any public delegations registered to speak to this application?
Through the chair, there are no delegations for this application.
Thank you, Alyssa. Are there any final questions or comments to staff or the agent from the committee? I will now turn it over to Member Schmidt to move the motion, to provide the motion on this item.
Thank you, Chair. It is moved by myself and seconded by Member Smith that application A37-21-SL be approved as outlined in staff report CA-21-96.
Thank you, Member Schmidt. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Zuloff?
Yes.
Vamus?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Brown, yes. The motion has carried. The application has been approved. Thank you to the committee. I will now introduce the item 6.2, application A2321SL, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and recommendation. I'll also note that Member Vamus has declared a conflict with this application and will recuse himself.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. This is regarding minor variance application A2321SL for lands identified with property roll number 2920-004-020-0222 within the former township of Brantford. The minor variance is to request a minimum frontage of 16.3 meters, whereas a minimum lot frontage of 20 meters is required for an existing lot of record in an agricultural zone. The applicant is requesting relief of 3.7 meters. The subject lands are a former railway line stretching from Cleaver Road on the east to Bishopsgate Road on the west. To the north of the subject property, there are agricultural lands. To the east of the subject property is a single detached dwelling and buildings associated with agricultural uses. To the south of the subject property are agricultural lands, Dekeer Road, and single detached dwellings and buildings associated with agricultural uses. And to the east of the subject property, there are agricultural lands and related uses. The lands are irregular in shape with an approximate frontage of 16.3 meters along the west side of Cleaver Road and an area of approximately 5.13 hectares. The subject lands are designated as agriculture within the County of Brant official plan, as well as employment. The portion subject to the minor variance is not within the employment designation, it is within the agricultural designation. The subject lands are zoned as agriculture within the County of Brant zoning bylaw 6116. The proposal is considered to be in keeping with the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. Public comments were received from 7 Cleaver Road, 5 Cleaver Road, and 14 Decatur Road at the time of writing the original report. A summary of these comments have been detailed in the current report. Staff is of the opinion that the minor variance request to permit a minimum lot frontage for an existing lot of record of 16.3 meters, whereas 20 meters is required, has merit, is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the development of the subject lands. The request is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. I am recommending approval of the minor variance application subject to the attached conditions. Thank you and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Shannon, for the presentation. Does the committee have any questions or concerns to staff?
I have one. Member Emmett?
Thank you, Member Emmett. Please go ahead with your question.
The road allowance on Bishopsgate is wide enough for the frontage, so it's already wide enough for the lot, is it not?
Member, through you, Madam Chair, to Member Emmett. Upon review of the survey provided, I believe the frontage along Bishopsgate is actually 7.3 meters.
It's narrower yet then.
Pardon me?
It's narrower yet then.
Well, it also wouldn't meet the frontage requirements of 20 meters required in agricultural zone for an existing lot of record.
Does that answer your question, Member Emmett?
Yep. Yes?
I believe that was one of the concerns raised in the last presentation of this, and that we had discussions that the variance really only did apply to the Cleaver Road end. So I'll ask the committee, are there any further questions or comments? I have a question. I believe it was to be addressed by staff consulting with legal. I'm still not clear on the issues surrounding the PIN ending in 7, 8, and 12 as to whether or not this is actually a separate lot or was it merged with agricultural lands. If you could please address that, Shannon.
Certainly. So after meeting with the county solicitor, she requested that additional information be provided by the applicant or agent to confirm that the parcels have in fact not merged. A title search was not done by the county solicitor. She suggested this be done by the applicant or agent, and that information be provided by them. I reached out to the applicant and agent requesting additional information. Maybe they can speak to that further.
I believe I was muted. Is the applicant or agent present to address the concern that the committee has regarding the merger?
Elder Plans is present. Frank Cortez was not able to attend tonight. In this matter of the merger question, what I don't understand is 3 properties, 3 PIN numbers. 2 of them would have originally been owned with the railway lines going through the middle, would have separated the two of them. Owning the railway lines under Frank's name is a separate property, not in the same names. I've never seen those ever merge, so I don't understand this.
I'm afraid you've broken up. I can't hear anymore.
I asked with the title search why it would be needed when the properties split by the rail line in the past. The rail line is owned by Frank himself. No common abutting properties under the same ownership.
Thank you. Then I will ask if there are any committee members who have comments or questions on this matter to the applicant.
This is Member Zuloff here.
Yes, thank
sorry,
you.
so you're saying that so the current subject lands that are the subject of this application, are you saying that there's no land abutting it whatsoever that's in the same name, like under just Mr. Curtis's name?
That's correct.
Okay, if you know that as a fact, then there shouldn't be any merger. I see some of the pins were in his name, and I'm assuming it's his wife's name, but I saw another pin that he owns ending in the digit 0012 wasn't his name alone. So I just wasn't sure if that pin was abutting the subject lands in any way.
The pin with the ending in 12, railway
Is in
line
the name
from
of Mr.
previous,
Curtis alone.
and it's in Frank's name alone.
That's right.
I believe,
Yeah. So if that pin were abutting the lands that are subject to this application, then they likely would have merged in title and would need a severance to be dealt with separately.
They're owned by him alone, and it's the railway. What they do is they run through the middle of the other two parcels, but those parcels are owned by Frank. So they can't merge because they're split by the railway line.
if I could interject here, Ms. Elder, I believe Member Zuloff is raising the concern that the property with the pin ending in digits 12, and you seem to indicate that that property does abut this property, and it is registered under Frank Cortez's name alone. So that is the question I believe the committee and specifically Member Zuloff has. If they do abut, then those lands have merged in title. That is what we're trying to clarify. We're not talking about the agricultural lands on either side. We're talking about the separate parcel. That's my interpretation. That has the pin ending in 12. And Member Zuloff was concerned if it is in proximity and adjacent to this old rail line. If you could address that.
I'll try to explain it again. Catherine owned two parcels that front on Bishop's Gate. They've owned those for years. When the railway line became available, Frank purchased the railway line. It is in. It runs through the middle of those two earlier parcels. Never seen a parcel under one ownership merge with a parcel under that are different. So Frank and Catherine's can't merge with Frank's because they're different. So I don't understand why it's being questioned.
No, I don't. Yes, I understand that. My question is, where is the pin ending in the digit 001212 in comparison to the lands that are subject to this application? Where is that pin located?
So the pin that ends in 12.
Yeah.
Railway line, which is the subject of this matter, and it goes.
Oh, no. I don't believe,
It runs
is
right
the one
through the
ending in
middle.
12 the subject of this matter? I thought the one that the subject of this matter was ending in 0, ending in 9.
We
So
don't
this
even
one is-
have a 9.
Okay, because he owned 4 properties. Okay. Sorry, I wish I had my email in front of me here, because I did do a quick search on TerraView, and I could see that he owned 2 properties, one which is the subject land. So you're saying the one that's subject of this application is the one that ends in 12?
That's my understanding,
Is that
yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I did see that he owned another pin as well that was in his name alone. That was the one I was concerned could be adjacent to the subject land. I don't have a pin map or I could be able to tell right away, but
He owns 7 and 8 and 12.
and another pin as well.
That I'm not aware of.
Okay. Well, maybe that needs to be straightened out. Through the chair to staff, Lisa, do you happen to have that email I sent that had the copy from the TerraNet or the TerraView search? Is Lisa present?
If I would,
So you're
I'm
on.
asking if
Sorry,
Shannon
yes.
could.
Can you hear me?
respond.
Yes.
Through the chair to member Zuloff, we have the pin ending in 12, which is part lot 1 and 2, concession 3, Brantford, on reference plan 2R6223, which is the one that Ms. Elder is saying is the application property. Then we have the pin ending in 08, which is part lot 1, concession 5. And we have pin ending in 07, which is part lot 1, concession 5, part lot 2, concession 5. And then the one you were speaking of is the one ending in 09, which is 318 Bishopsgate Road.
Okay.
Part
So
lot
that's the
1,
one I guess.
concession 5, Brantford, part lot 2, concession 5. Yeah. So you're correct. There are 4 pins that you provided in this email.
Okay, so I guess it is, yeah, it is the one ending in 9 then, that's the concern.
Yes.
If I could, Madam Chair.
Yes, please go ahead.
The conditions do suggest that we could do search after, and I would suggest that we will do that if the committee would see it free to approve it with that condition.
I have an issue. How can we grant a minor variance then if we're not sure it is a separate lot? Because if it has merged and we still don't have definitive proof, and I do apologize, I wrote down 7, 8, and 12, and I knew there was another one, but I thought this was 12. So we still don't know for sure that it hasn't merged with the pin ending in 9, as Member Zuloff pointed out.
Member Smith, Madam Chair, if you don't mind.
Please go ahead.
Through to staff, is it not, I mean, the issue with the merger, that needs to be dealt with by a solicitor. I don't think we can figure that out at this meeting right now. So can staff provide maybe a recommendation if we do the condition and maybe just say how that condition is going to be read? If we say that this can only be approved, granted that that is a legal lot of record.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Member Smith, I just wanted to add that 318 Bishopsgate is not near this property. So for one of the pins that are being identified that may be owned by Frank, it's not near this parcel.
Yeah, but I think with that being said, we've had a lot of chat about that. We've discussed that a lot. I think it needs to come from a solicitor just so that we can feel safe about that. So I think if we can include a condition if staff can maybe provide some wording for a condition, just to make sure that we at least get some reassurance from a solicitor that it hasn't merged with any abutting lot. And then if it hasn't merged, then the minor variance is approved.
Well, I would agree with that.
We're happy to provide some wording as a condition, and I think staff is supportive of using the condition to address the concerns of the committee. So if you just want to give us 1 minute, we can come up with some wording and read it back to the committee.
Thank you. I'll just mute and wait until you come back with the proposed condition then.
Okay, I'm just going to take a stab at the wording, and then committee and Mary can let us know if it's satisfactory. So the condition could be worded that the applicant provide confirmation through legal counsel, title search, that the subject lands are a legal lot of record and have not merged with abutting parcels.
That sounds acceptable to me. I'll ask Member Zuloff, is that a condition acceptable to you?
Sure, that's acceptable to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments to the applicant agent here? If there are not from the committee, we will move on to the public delegation, who is registered to speak on this application, and I believe his name is Phil Miller. Is he present to provide his presentation?
I am present.
I'll turn the item over to you now, Mr. Miller, for your presentation.
All right, thank you. So,
You're welcome.
firstly, I would like to confirm here that the access at Bishop's Gate East is, as per what has been mentioned here, is that access now deemed too narrow, or has even a variance been applied for at that location? So Bishop's Gate East, concerning this variance or this particular property. And then furthermore, I believe everyone on the committee has had their opportunity to take a look at least the photos that have been provided in this report. And the area delegated for potential development is obviously right in the middle of agricultural land, active agricultural land. And so aside from the landscaping of the area being a railway track with some fairly steep ditches on either side, there's also the concern of developing this land. How is the septic, now I realize I may be thinking way ahead of myself here, but how would any septic be installed in there without the potential contamination of the agricultural land in the immediate vicinity of this lot? It's also already, the home is, or anything that is being built there would have to be built on a ribbon of land where, you know, the house would be, or the building would be quite long, but very narrow, and access around the building would be virtually impossible. So again, my concern here is there wouldn't be access from both sides, from the Bishop's Gate side and from the Cleaver Road side, and the suitability of the location. Now this is agricultural land. Building a home right in between, in the middle of two fields, it just this land should be returned to for agricultural purposes, and that is pretty much where we stand on that. Further, in the previous application, the owners of number 5 that find themselves in a similar situation, they are not the original owners of the property, but they've also mentioned that or asked the question if this committee is ready to set the precedent by granting this variance, because there are many other properties along this particular railway line that are in similar situation.
Mr. Miller, I would like to interject here. As a committee of adjustment, we are only responsible for granting or denying the minor variance. When it comes to building matters that you are raising, that goes through the issuance of building permit process, and we have no jurisdiction over that. We recognize your concerns. I'm asking if you have questions or comments to direct to staff or the applicant regarding this minor variance application, if you would keep your comments strictly to that matter, because going forward, we have no control over that process. Do you have any further comments you would like to add on this application that are just to do with the minor variance?
No, and my apologies, as mentioned, I may be getting ahead of myself here. So, no, I will respectfully decline to make any further comments or have any other questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I'll ask any committee members, do you have any comments or questions to direct to the delegate? I believe there are none. Are there any final comments or questions to staff or the agent? It appears there are none. Oh, yes? Who is this?
Member Emmett, I just why do we have to have the variance for the frontage at this time?
I would ask staff if they can respond to that.
Through you, Madam Chair, sorry, is it Member Schmidt?
Emmett, that's all right.
Sorry, Emmett, my apologies.
No problem.
The reason why the minor variance is being requested is to obtain a building permit in the future.
Further, then, should we be doing this frontage issue when we're dealing with the building permit or the severance for a lot? I guess we don't deal with building permits, but.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Member Emmett, there's no building permit applied for at this time. It is just purely the minor variance. There's no building permit being applied for right now.
That goes back to my first question. Why do we need a variance for the frontage?
And so our zoning bylaw requires a specific amount of frontage for a legal lot of record. And in this situation, the applicant does not meet that required frontage. So in order to obtain a building permit, they must first receive approval of the minor variance in order to move forward to the building permit stage. And I could also just clarify that there is no severance application needed for this. It is just the minor variance application that they need prior to a building permit application. And hopefully that clarifies your question, Member Smith.
Thank you, Shannon. Does that answer your question, Member Emmett?
Kind of.
Thank you. Then are there any further questions or comments from the committee on this application? I believe there are no more.
All right,
I will now turn it.
Member Smith,
Yes?
I
Yes.
think maybe I can add to member Emmett's concern because I have a similar one. I'm concerned when, yes, I agree. Obviously, they need the variance for the frontage, but when they go to place the house on this property, I have a funny feeling that we're going to see another application for some deficient setbacks. So I guess my question was, is there any plan, a sketch with the house on it with some rough setbacks? Has that been provided at all?
Through the chair to Member Smith, planning staff, Shannon is the planner on this file, and I do believe that she reached out to the applicants in that regard, because the last thing we want to see is someone have to come back for another planning application. And it's our understanding that the applicant was confident that they could meet the zoning requirements for all setbacks, side yard, front yard, rear yard. So we did work with them in since the previous deferral to ensure we did ask for a building envelope to be provided to us to ensure, but the applicant did not provide the envelope drawing, and they're under the impression that they will be able to satisfy the zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments from the committee to staff or the applicant?
Through the chair, Member Brown, you've muted yourself.
Okay. I will now turn it over to Member Hamilton to provide the motion.
Moved by myself, seconded by Member Schmidt, that application A23-21-SL be approved as outlined in the staff report with the amended set of conditions that were discussed tonight.
Thank you, Member Hamilton. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
No.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Zuloff?
No.
Vamus has declared a conflict. Member Smith?
No.
Member Schmidt?
Yes.
Member Brown? No. I will now, I believe there were 4 votes. I'll ask staff to make the determination if the motion carried.
Through the chair, there were 4 noes and 3 yeses. The motion is denied.
I will now indicate to the applicant that the motion failed and the application has been denied. Thank you. I will now introduce item 6.3, application A3321SL, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and the recommendation.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. This is regarding minor variance application A3321SL for lands identified as 25 Finlay within the former township of Burford. The applicant is seeking relief from section 4, table 4.4.1 regarding maximum allowable lot coverage in order to facilitate the construction of an accessory structure for storage purposes. The applicant is proposing an increase to the maximum allowable lot coverage for an accessory structure of 223 square meters, whereas the lesser of 15% of the total lot area or 140 square meters is permitted. To the north and east of the subject property, there are low density, single detached residential dwellings and vacant residential lots. To the south and west of the subject property, there are low density, single detached residential dwellings and related uses. The subject lands have a frontage of approximately 24 meters along Finlay Street. The subject lot is irregular in shape and has an area of approximately 0.48 hectares. These subject lands are designated suburban residential and zoned as suburban residential within the County of Brant zoning bylaw 6116. The proposal is considered to be in keeping with the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. No public comments were received at the time of writing this report. Staff is of the opinion that the minor variance request to permit an increase to the maximum allowable lot coverage for an accessory structure of 223 square meters, whereas the lesser of 15% of the total lot area, or 140 square meters, is permitted in order to facilitate the construction of an accessory structure for storage purposes, has merit, is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the development of the subject lands. The request is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. I'm recommending approval of the minor variance application subject to the attached conditions. Thank you and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Shannon, for the presentation. Does the committee have any questions or comments to staff on this?
Member Hamilton here, to staff, on condition number 3, it's stating verification of the west property line be required to be completed for and to ensure there's proper setbacks. Does that mean that he will move the building once that verification lot line's there to meet the zoning bylaws for side accessory or to the lot line?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Member Hamilton. With the dimensions that are currently provided, he's actually exceeding the required setbacks.
Thank you. I just wanted clarification on that number 3. So that then it's okay then. Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments from the committee to staff? It appears there are none. So I'll ask, is the agent or or applicant present to make a presentation or add any further details to staff's report?
Hi, this is the Mendez family. We don't have anything to add. Thanks to Shannon for all her hard work. Just here to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll ask the committee, do you have any questions or comments to the applicant?
Member Emmett,
Yes, go ahead, please.
are there any other such buildings in the survey? Or is this
There are
the
no
first
buildings.
one?
Is
The
Ms.
zoning for this,
Mendez? Yes, go ahead.
the zoning in this area is it urban or rural residential?
Through Madam Chair to Member Emmett. The zoning is suburban residential, SR.
All right. In the neighborhood, are there other buildings such as this one already erected?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Member Emmett. Located to the east of the subject property, there was I noted upon my site visit that there was a detached garage that was larger, that seemed to have a larger building footprint as well. And then to the west of the subject property, there was a shed under construction that was larger in size.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments? And from what I see, there are no public delegations registered to speak to this application. If Alyssa could please confirm.
You're correct. There are no delegations.
Thank you. Then I'll ask the committee, are there any final comments or questions to staff or the applicant on this matter? I believe there are none, so I will now turn it over to Member Vamus to provide the motion.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Member Emmett that application A33-21-SL be approved as outlined in staff report CA-21-92, subject to the list of the 3 conditions.
Thank you, Member Vamus. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of this motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
No.
Brown, yes. I believe there were sufficient yeses to carry the motion. The motion is carried. The application has been approved. Thank you. I will now introduce item 6.4, application A3521 SL, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is regarding minor variance application A3521 SL for lands identified as 13 Wingrove Woods within the former township of Brantford. The applicant is seeking relief from section 9, table 9.2.1 in regard to an interior side yard setback for the construction of an addition to the main dwelling as an additional residential unit. The applicant is proposing a decreased interior side yard setback of 2.2 meters, whereas 5 meters is required, requesting relief of 2.8 meters. To the north and west of the subject property, there is a park and low-density single detached dwellings. To the east and south of the subject property, there are low-density single detached dwellings. These subject lands are rectangular in shape and have a frontage of approximately 40 meters along Wingrove Woods and an area of approximately 0.28 hectares. These subject lands are designated rural residential within the County of Brant official plan and zoned as rural, special exception rural residential within the County of Brant zoning bylaw 6116. The site-specific provision RR-3 permits a minimum lot area of 3,000 square meters and a minimum floor area for a dwelling of 205 square meters. The proposal is considered to be in keeping with the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. No public comments were received at the time of writing the report. Staff is of the opinion that the minor variance request to permit a decreased interior side yard setback of 2.2 meters, whereas 5 meters is required, to facilitate the construction of an addition to the main dwelling unit as an additional residential unit, has merit, is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the development of the subject lands. The request is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. I'm recommending approval of the minor variance application subject to the attached conditions. Thank you and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, staff. I will ask the committee, if any members have any questions or comments to this application for staff?
It's Member Zuloff. Through the chair to staff, I just note in the development engineering comments in our materials, it says, while on site, it was noted that an existing underground gas line service location is in conflict with the proposed addition. I'm just wondering how that's being addressed.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Member Zuloff. That's a development engineering comment. I can always follow up with them to see how it's being addressed, but they didn't have any objections to the application.
Okay.
Any further comments or questions from the committee to staff? Is the agent or applicant available to provide a presentation or further comments to staff report? Has the applicant or agent?
I am.
Yes. Oh,
Hi,
could I ask your name?
my name is Austin Van Ravensway. I have been hired as the contractor.
Thank you. Do you have anything further to add to the staff report?
I can answer Member Zulof's question. We have addressed the gas line running through the area and have been in touch with Union Gas, and we're set once permits are approved to relocate the gas line.
Does that answer your question, Member Zuloff?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Then are there any further questions from the committee to the applicant?
Member Hamilton, through the chair to the applicant. When I was out and taking a quick look at that, this is supposed to be a ARU or an addition for the parents, I believe. Is the garage going to be converted over at this time to additional living spaces, or will the garage stay as is?
The garage will stay as is.
So how big is this additional area going to be then, in square footage?
Square footage, it will be 750 square feet.
Okay, and will that be a separate living unit with bathroom, kitchen, or will some things be shared?
It'll be completely separate with its own kitchen and bathroom.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I believe there are no public delegations to speak to this matter.
Through the chair, there are none.
Thank you. Then are there any final questions or comments to staff or the applicant?
Member Emmett again.
Yes, please go ahead.
Does that leave roughly 7 feet to the property line then?
I didn't quite get your question.
2.2 meters is roughly 8 feet?
Yes, 7.3 feet, I see, yes. What was your question?
Then is there any way to get any equipment if there's further construction required into the backyard at the other end of the house? Enough clearance without going on other people's property?
Through Madam Chair to Member Emmett, upon the site visit, there is enough space located on the other side of the property to get equipment through. And the reason why they chose this location in the first place was to ensure that the property still was had usability.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess are there any further comments or questions on this then?
Yes, through the chair to the applicant, Member Amos.
Yes.
Is there going to be a separate entrance to this this addition? Or I noticed there's some kind of a garage door to the one side, to the east.
Yes, this will have its own separate entrance. In the back, there'll be a door in the back of the additional residential unit.
And then I noticed there's lots of flags in the ground already. Where are those for? The utilities? They're already pre-marked or something?
We got locates because locates seem to take a long time to get right now. So we just went ahead and got those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions from committee members? I will now turn this matter over to Member Zuloff for the motion.
Moved by myself and second by Member Schmidt that application A3521SL be approved as outlined in the staff report CA 2191.
Thank you, Member Zuloff. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Zuloff?
Yes.
Amos?
No.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Brown, yes. I believe there was only one no in the vote, so I will state that the motion has carried, the application has been approved. I will now introduce item 6.5, application B69 and B70 21 KD, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and recommendation.
Great, thank you. If I can just confirm that you can see my screen.
Well,
We've lost
our ability, Member Hamilton and I, but it's okay.
Okay, I can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Committee of Adjustment and members of the public. The application before us tonight is for consent applications on behalf of IBI Group for owner Scott Emerson for lands located at 247 Mclean School Road. The subject lands are located on the north side of Mclean School Road and are east of Brant Road and west of St. George Road. The subject lands have frontage along Mclean School Road of about 231 meters and have an area of approximately 10 acres. The land subject to the consent applications consists mostly of open field and hilled land. The surrounding areas consist of low-density single detached dwellings along Mclean School Road, and agricultural uses also surround the subject land. And the lands do also contain wetlands. The proposal before the committee tonight is to sever for the purpose of creating two residential rural building lots. The new lot 1 will have a proposed frontage of about 131 meters and an area of 4.7 acres. Lot 2 will have a proposed frontage of about 40 meters and an area of about 2.5 acres. The applicant is also requesting an easement for access between a shared driveway. The shared driveway access will ensure that Lot 1 access does not go through the wetlands identified on the site plan. The access easement is a condition of consent as required through the site plan submitted for the development agreement. The subject lands are designated rural residential, and they are also zoned rural residential. Portions of the subject lands are designated in zone natural heritage and include wetlands on the subject lands and the adjacent lands. Through circulation comments, one of the concerns raised through environmental review related to the protection of natural heritage features. In order to ensure no negative impacts on the natural features, a 30-meter vegetation buffer has been proposed throughout the property in relation to all natural heritage features. Furthermore, conditions of consent will ensure that a development agreement will be entered into for each lot to ensure that no development, fencing, or physical delineation will occur through the buffer. Vegetated buffers are proposed along the natural heritage features on site as outlined within the scoped EIS. And there will also be enhanced native plantings. Comments from the GRCA have indicated that they do require updated mapping and buffering, which will be required through the implementation of the development agreement. It is my professional opinion that the development agreement condition will ensure that the natural heritage features are protected and no negative impact will result as a result of development on the subject lands. I am supportive of the applications as they are consistent with provincial policy statement. They conform to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the County of Brant official plan, and the County of Brant zoning bylaw. The County of Brant official plan and zoning bylaw contemplate for development on lands designated and zoned as rural residential. And it is my opinion that the proposed severances represent a continued logical development along Mclean School Road. I should also note that my report and conditions indicated further details required for MDS. We have received a full comprehensive MDS report from the applicants, and so the condition for MDS has been removed. The applicant will be required to enter into a development agreement with the County of Brant as a condition of approval to ensure the subject lands are developed according to recommendations of the EIS. I am recommending approval of the applications subject to the attached conditions. I also do want to note to the committee members that one email has been received from the public in relation to the application and has been circulated through an addendum to the committee members. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions of the committee.
Thank you, Kayla. Do the committee members have any questions or comments to staff on this application? I'll have a comment. I've noticed that there is on page 10 of the report, as the existing road allowance width is sufficient, widening will not be required. So this seems to be a rare application that there is not the automatic road widening included. So I find that a little different on this one. I will then ask, is the applicant or their agent present to make a separate presentation or add any details to the staff report?
Yes, Madam Chair, it's John Arians from the IBI group here. I'm just trying to load up my PowerPoint presentation for the committee. Can you see the green screen now?
Thank you.
So I'm here on behalf of Mr. Emerson, and been helping them provide and design 2 severances on this just over 10-acre parcel of land. As staff have indicated, it's situated on the north side of Mclean School Road, approximately 1.5 kilometers east of Highway 24. This is an air photo of the property. You can see that there's a long driveway at the west end leading to a dwelling, to a drive shed, and a decommissioned barn. The property at one time had horses, and there was a track situated in this location. You can also see on the air photo that there's a wetland feature to the north, and there is a wooded area to the east. Those are designated as part of the natural heritage system, and for the most part, the subject lands are an open meadow. There are 2 smaller pockets of wetlands situated in this location here. From a planning standpoint, this is an excerpt from the Brant County official plan. The brown color represents a rural residential designation, and the dark green that's situated at the 2 corners is part of the natural heritage. Just for your information, you're probably aware that the lime green color is actually the Tim Hortons camp immediately to the north and east of these lands. This is the excerpt from the zoning bylaw, and as Kayla has indicated, these lands are designated and are zoned rural residential, and as such, this is an ideal candidate for additional rural residential development. There are no zoning variances before the committee. The retained lots and the 2 proposed lots fully comply, and I would be I understood the committee's concern over one of the former applications about a potential building envelope resulting in variances. I can assure you that there are very generous building envelopes available on the 2 proposed lots. So the lotting pattern is quite unique for this particular site, and we specifically crafted them based on, first of all, the existing topography. Surveyor has already prepared a topographic survey. One of the reasons for that was to ensure that our driveway access on Mclean School Road met with the sightline requirements, and also to identify the environmental features. This map here shows the purple area, which are the GRCA wetland features. And then we retained an environmental consultant to do an environmental impact study. And you can see the blue lines do not quite follow the purple lines in detail, because boots on the ground, as you can appreciate, are far more accurate than the air photo mapping that the Conservation Authority used. So we have the wetlands clearly identified and surveyed. We also have the green line here, which is the drip line for the trees, which is a core natural feature also surveyed. So once we have the environmental features, we then apply the buffers and the setbacks to those features. And as a result, the blue circles represent the buffers with respect to the wetland, and the beige area represents the buffers from the woodland, and the green line does as well. So those identify the environmental constraints affecting this particular property. And when we superimpose the lot lines on top of that, you'll see that lot number 1 has ample frontage, but because we would not recommend putting a driveway through the buffer area, a shared driveway easement is going to be required for that lot. It has a very generous building envelope, and all the buffers and all the setbacks from an environmental perspective are being maintained. Similarly, for lot number 2, it has 1 hectare in area. It has the 40 meters of frontage, a very generous building envelope up on one of the upper hills where the former horse track is situated. And of course, the retained land also has ample frontage and area. So I hope that this has explained how these unique lots have been created. It's all in an effort to respect the environmental features on the property. So the constraints were the natural heritage features, the driveway access, and the MDS calculations. And as Ms. Delisle has pointed out, a report by an agronomist has confirmed compliance with the MDS. So I would agree with staff on their conclusions. It's consistent with the provincial planning. It's consistent with the County of Brant official plan. It's fully compliant with your zoning bylaw. It respects the rural residential character, and there are no adverse environmental impacts. Members of committee, the conditions of approval have been reviewed by our client. They're satisfied with the conditions, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Does the committee have any questions or comments to the agent on this matter? I believe there are none. So I will now move on to the public delegation portion of the application, and I believe there is a delegate to present. Is that delegate present? I believe the name's Aaron Featherstone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you please identify?
Yes, my name is Erin, and I'm happy with the presentation. I don't have any further questions.
So no further questions. Does the committee have any comments or final questions to staff, the public, delegate, or the applicant? I believe there are none, so I will now turn it over to Member Emmett for the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moved by myself and seconded by Member Zuloff that application B69-B70-21-KD be approved as outlined in staff report CA-21-95.
Thank you, Member Emmett. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Zuloff?
Yes.
Vamus?
No.
Smith?
No.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Brown? Yes. I believe there were 2 noes on this application, so I will state that the motion has carried and the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now move to item 6.6 on the agenda for applications B65 and B66 21AW, and ask staff to do their presentation of the report and recommendation.
All right, thank you. Through the chair, an application for severance has been received from David Rowe on behalf of number company 2707130 Ontario Inc. Excuse me, for the lands municipally known as 539 Paris Road. The subject lands are located on the south side of Paris Road, west of the Oak Park and Paris Road intersection. The subject lands are irregular in shape and have an area of approximately 17 hectares. The applicant is proposing 2 severances for the purposes of creating 2 additional industrial building lots. The applicant is specifically requesting to sever an area of approximately 4.95 hectares for the purpose of an industrial plaza. Secondly, to sever an area of approximately 1.79 hectares for the purpose of a quilting studio, and the retained is proposed to have an area of approximately 10.63 hectares. And then in regards to the official plan, the subject lands are designated as employment, are located within site-specific policy area 16, and are located within the primary urban settlement area. The official plan contemplates for heavy and light industrial uses on lands designated as employment. And then in regards to the zoning bylaw, the subject lands were rezoned through rezoning application ZBA 4-21-AW from heavy industrial and agricultural to heavy industrial with 3 site-specific provisions. The site-specific provisions reflect the proposed uses and the proposed location of each use. And I also note the site plan control process is applicable to the subject lands. And then through public circulation, no comments were received for the severances. I do note development engineering has provided amended comments, which I believe was provided to the committee members today through an addendum. And then in regards to my recommendation, I'm recommending approval of the application, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee members may have.
Thank you, Amanda. Do any committee members have questions to staff on this application?
Member Zuloff, through the chair to staff. I just had a question because there appears to be a number of comments on our materials, for example, from operations, CN Rail. Operations says that the proposed entrance to Oak Park Road does not meet the minimum standards as it's in very close proximity to the Paris Road Oak Park intersection. Operations staff is opposed to the entrance. CN Rail has encouraged some criteria to be part of this application: owner installing and maintaining a chain link fence, but a stormwater management report. These don't seem to have been included in the conditions at all. Anything addressing these points? I'm just wondering if they're going to be addressed or.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. That's a good question. I have spoken with operations, and I've also spoken with CN Rail and the development engineering team. Those comments that you identified, those were advisory comments, and through the site plan control process, those additional materials would be required to address those comments and potentially those concerns identified by the other agents or other commenting departments.
So at what point, sorry, would those be addressed, like before building takes place, or?
Yeah, so sorry to cut you off. Through the chair, prior to a building permit being issued, they would need to go through a process called site plan control. And through site plan control, that's when we finalize the locations of the buildings, the exact locations of the driveways, how wide the driveways are going to be, the exact grading, and kind of the fine details of the project. So they need to go through the site plan control process, and that site plan control process needs to be approved and finalized, and securities provided prior to a building permit being issued.
Okay, thank you.
So are there any further questions or comments from the committee? Just following on Member Zuloff's comment and question, I believe I saw somewhere in the material that these agencies and departments are not supportive if there was an entrance off Oak Park, and I believe it's not a good idea either. Would it be necessary to add a condition that no entrance can be permitted off of Oak Park? They would be similar to an application. We had a couple of meetings back where they had like a little shed and on the side road, and they were using it to go in and out onto the side road.
Through yourself, MJ, the chair, it's my opinion that a condition for an entrance along Oak Park Road is not required, as the applicants did prepare a traffic impact study, and that traffic impact study, based on my understanding, did not support an entrance off of Oak Park, and neither do our operations department, which would be issuing the public works permit. So they would not be in support of that entrance, but should the committee deem it appropriate, they are able to pose conditions that they believe is an appropriate condition. And I do believe the agent and their engineers here, if they would like to add additional information to that at the time as well.
Thank you. And one last comment before I turn it back to the committee. In condition 4, the fourth bullet there, where you're referring to the letter of credit in the amount of 1.2 million, and it also ends with the actual construction costs will be invoiced. In the addendum that was circulated today, do we need to sort of modify that a bit, because the addendum seemed to point that the applicant has to recognize that these costs are their sole expense. There is no cost sharing with the county. So while it states it's being invoiced, I'm just looking for a little more precise wording for them to recognize those are their costs that they must bear.
Thank you through yourself, MJ, the chair. Should the committee see it fit, they can amend wording of a condition, but the condition that was circulated through the addendum, that was drafted by our development engineering team, who were the original people who provided that comment speaking, or the condition speaking to the letter of credit. Through additional discussions with the applicant and with management and with development engineering, it was decided it might be more appropriate for the letter of credit and the actual cost estimate for that left turn lane to be determined through the site plan control process when the uses are a little more finalized and when the exact design of Paris Road is finalized as well.
Thank you. Then I'll turn it back to the committee if there are any further questions or comments to staff. I don't believe there are any. So is the applicant or their agent present to provide a presentation of their own or add any details to staff report?
Dave Rowe here. I'm just here to answer any questions, as is our engineer and the owner as well. But no, I don't have a presentation specific for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. I'll ask the committee if there's any comments. Yes?
Can I provide a few additional comments? Bob Phillips from Cahoon Engineering.
Sure, Mr. Phillips, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Certainly, we've read the planning staff report, and both the original conditions that came out of development engineering and the subsequent conditions that came out today from development engineering. We certainly understand the issue about the entrance onto Oak Park Road coming from Lot 2, but let's be clear, there is an entrance for, I believe that's Lot 3 onto Oak Park Road, so a prohibition of entrances would be very bad, I guess is what I could say. And I just want to be sure that we do have access to Oak Park Road, understanding that there'll be further discussions and the elimination of the secondary entrance to Lot 2 may require its elimination. There is an existing entrance in that location, not to the subject lands, but to the lands on the corner. In addition, in the supplemental memo from development engineering, there was discussions that there would be cost sharing, not with the county necessarily, but with the abutting landowners who are also developing the lands. There was a joint traffic study done for a few of the developers in the area. And it did indicate some improvements were required to Paris Road, which we're prepared to pay our fair share. The initial memo came out with this number of 1.2 million, and through further discussions, there was an understanding that that number would be further refined and cost shared with some other people. So that's why I think the amended conditions are more appropriate than the original ones. And certainly we're willing to work with the county and the abutting developers to come to a resolution on that and provide our share. I hope that clarifies those items.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. And with that, I'll ask if the committee members have any comments to Mr. Phillips on these matters. I believe there are none. So are there any final questions or comments to staff on this? It appears there are none, so I will now turn it over to Member Hamilton for the motion.
Thank you to the chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Member Vamus, that application B65-B and B66-21AW be approved as outlined in the staff report CA 21-86 with the amended comments that come out today.
Thank you, Member Hamilton. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Brown, yes. The motion has carried. The application has been approved.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'll now introduce the item 6.7 for application B6821DN and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a consent application, as you mentioned, for 59 Laurel Street in Paris. The owner applicants are D2 Custom Homes, and Mr. Fowler is with us this evening to answer any questions after my presentation, and staff are recommending approval of this application. So the subject lands identified by the blue dot there are located within the primary settlement boundary of Paris, north of Dundas Street West, down Laurel Street and adjacent to Lions Park. The subject lands have a total frontage of 51 meters, depth of 25 meters, and an area of 1,300 square meters. The official plan land use designation of the subject lands is primarily urban residential. There is the east side of the property there identified in green that is natural heritage, and that is just due to the proximity to the river and the location of the estimated floodplain. And surrounding land uses, as you can see, we have our Parks and Rec. This property is directly across the road from the Paris Pool and Lions Park to the east, and surrounding uses to the south and to the west are urban residential. The current zoning on the property is residential singles and semis, R2. And again, surrounding land uses, recognizing the open space and the natural heritage features surrounding. The application proposes the creation of one new residential lot, having a frontage of 23 meters, a depth of 25 meters, and an area of approximately 596 square meters. The severed lands are identified on the west portion of the subject lands in red, and the retained lands are identified in green. The conditions of consent as identified in the staff report confirm that and require that the accessory structure located on the severed lands is to be removed prior to the finalization of the consent application. The engineer or environmental planning comments identify the need to protect or replace trees on the property, as well as ministry acceptance of the archaeological assessment. And I'll just note that details reviewed at the time of building permit include the detailed site plan, drainage and grading. Detailed zoning review of the new development will be done at this time as well as connections to existing services along Laurel Street and review of safe entrance locations. So just two site photos to share. This one was taken at the corner of the property, kind of with my back to the parking lot of Lions Park, looking towards the newly reconstructed Laurel Street, towards the subject lands. And this site photo was taken towards the back of the property, looking towards the Paris Pool. Just gives you an idea of the what the subject lands look like beyond the fence and the number of trees located on the property itself. So comments received through technical circulation have been included in the staff report for the applicant and the committee's consideration. No comments were received from the public as part of the public circulation. Review of this consent application proposing the new lot creation has had regard for section 5124 of the Planning Act and the criteria to be considered when reviewing consent applications. Review of this consent application as proposed is compatible and consistent with the context of existing development. The application is consistent with policies of provincial policy statement and the growth plan, and the application conforms to the official plan and complies with the zoning bylaw and represents good planning. And therefore is my professional recommendation to the committee that this application be approved. Happy to answer any questions. And again, Mr. Fowler is with us to answer some questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I'll ask the committee, do any members have any questions or comments to staff on this application? I believe there are not, and as Dan has indicated, there is the applicant present. So does the applicant have any further items to add to the staff report or a presentation of their own?
No, I have no further comments to add. Dan did a great job with the presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions or comments to the applicant? I believe there are none, and I also believe there are no public delegations registered to speak to this application as confirmed by Alyssa.
That is correct, there are none.
Thank you. Then are there any final questions or comments to staff or the applicant on this matter? With that, I will turn it over to Member Smith to provide the motion.
Moved by myself and seconded by Member Zuloff that application B 6821DN be approved as outlined in staff report CA 2194.
Thank you, Member Smith. Members of the committee, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Zuloff?
Yes.
Zamus?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Brown, yes. The motion has carried. The application has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now turn the meeting over to Member Hamilton to chair the last application.
Thank you. The last one for the evening is to introduce item 6.8, application B67-21-AW and A38-21-AW. I want to turn it over to staff, noting that Member Brown, Member Zuloff, and Member Emmett have declared pecuniary interest and will be reclused from this application. So I'll turn it over to Amanda.
Thank you, Member Hamilton. Through the chair, an application for severance and minor variance has been received for the lands municipally known as 872 Paris Plains Church Road. The subject lands are located on the south side of Paris Plains Church Road, west of the Paris Plains Church Road and Pinehurst Road intersection. The subject lands are rectangular in shape and have an area of approximately 40.4 hectares. The benefiting parcel 890 Paris Plains Church Road are rectangular in shape and currently have an area of approximately 20.8 hectares. In regards to the proposal, the applicant is proposing to sever an area of approximately 26.6 hectares, which is expected to merge with the abutting parcel 890 Paris Plains Church Road. The retained parcel is expected to have an area of approximately 13.8 hectares, which is undersized, but the applicant has also applied for a minor variance to recognize this deficiency. And then in regards to the official plan, the subject lands are designated agricultural and natural heritage. The official plan does contemplate for undersized farms as long as justification is provided and they will be used for agricultural purposes. No new residential building lots are being created. And then in regards to the zoning bylaw, the subject lands are currently zoned as agricultural and natural heritage. The applicant has also applied for a minor variance to permit an undersized farm parcel of approximately 13.8 for the retained lands. I do note the benefiting parcel 890 Paris Plains Church Road is proposed to have a lot area of approximately 47.5 hectares, which exceeds the minimum development standards for agricultural lands. And then through public circulation, no comments were received. And then in regards to my recommendation, I'm recommending approval of the application, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee members may have.
Thank you, Amanda. Does the committee have any questions on the presentation that has been made right now? If there's no questions, is the agent or applicant present? And would they like to add any details or comments for this request?
Hi, it's Bruce Cruikshank here, and I think Amanda's presentation covered it well. I certainly don't have anything to add, but if there's questions, more than glad to entertain them.
Thank you, Mr. Cruikshank. Does the committee have any questions or comments for the agent or the applicant? All right, I guess not. I don't believe there are any public delegations registered for this application, correct, Elisa?
Correct.
All right, are there any final questions or comments to staff or the agent applicant that need to be made at this time? All right, seeing there's no questions, I'm going to turn this over to Member Schmidt to move the motion.
Thank you, Chair. It is moved by myself and seconded by Member Vamus that the application B67-21-AW and A38-21-AW be approved as outlined in the staff report CA-21-90.
Thank you, Member Schmidt. I will now call for the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Vamus.
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Schmidt,
Yes.
Member Hamilton, yes. With that, the motion has been carried and everything is looking forward. I will now turn for the applicant. I will now turn this back over to MJ to chair the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Member Hamilton. We'll now move to item 7 on the agenda. The date for the next meeting is expected to be January 20th, 2022. And I will move to adjournment. So can I please get a motion to adjourn the meeting? I believe Member Vamus will provide it.
Yes, moved by myself and second by Member Smith that the meeting of December 16th, 2021 be adjourned.
I'll ask all those in favor, indicate your name. Hamilton is yes, Brown is yes, Member Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
and Emmett.
Yes.
I now declare the meeting adjourned.
And Zuloff, yes, too.
Oh, and sorry, I do apologize. I was looking at a shortened list. The meeting is